I'm learning, and others can learn how to be much more clear in their own thinking so that they can make requests that get them what they want. Because the AIs are not going to think for you, really.
Welcome, everyone, to Tech4UsAll, the podcast that makes technology simple and approachable. Whether you're tech-adverse, anxious, or just hesitant to embrace it, we're here to show you how technology isn't as daunting as it seems. Each episode, we unpack everyday technologies with experts from around the world, breaking down everything in plain English to help you feel confident and in control. I'm your host, Scott Saldinger, and I look forward to introducing you to great guests every week, just like today, Peter Schawacker. He's a technology expert who's going to walk us through his thoughts on generative AI. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks for having me here. I appreciate your attention to the production of this. It's on point.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We got to get it right. Everyone's counting on us to help them understand that we understand technology. Speaking of which, tell us a little bit about your technology background.
I'm a failed guitar player. I played jazz as a lad. I was bad, but I learned something about selling and marketing and projects and managing. This was like my late teens. I was booking bands in Philly when I was 19, which was illegal, but I did it anyway. I was pretty good at it. But I needed like regular income, so I could type fast. I did like 75 words a minute. And if you could type fast, you could get temp jobs. And if you could get temp jobs, you came in contact with other people's software, which you could copy and take home. And so a temp agency would call and they'd say, "Do you know Quattro Pro 4? I'd be like, I would look at the shelf behind me and go, "Yeah, I got a copy of that." I could figure that out by Monday, and I did. And that was it. It was always, for me, I've been doing cybersecurity since the late 90s. It was at Earthlink, the first large dial-up ISP in the United States in the mid-90s. It's always been a matter of getting stuff done that I need to get done. And in those days, it was like make a buck. Some days it's still make a buck, but it's the same. It's the same process.
So, what are some of the things you've done in your career in technology?
Oh, systems administration. Sometimes a lot of, I kind of slammed right into cybersecurity at Citi at the late 90s as a tech writer. They hired me because they were migrating a thing from here to there, and they needed somebody who could make lists, and I was good at making lists. And then they needed people who could get things done that was on those lists, and I could do that too. And so, I worked in like large scale network security for big banks and for pretty much everybody but the military. I've worked in security monitoring and intrusion analysis and threat analysis and all that stuff. I've been a chief information security officer 1.5 times. These days I run a cybersecurity services company out of Mexico called Nearshore Cyber. So we work globally, but we're a small business.
What do you think is a reason, or in your experience, reasons why average people might not embrace the technology we have to use at our fingertips these days?
A lot of it is very badly designed. I mean, the state of what we call user interface, which is the screen, like the stuff you see on the screen that you click on and type in, that's the user interface. For the most part, it's just bad design. And the user interfaces are often built according to the convenience of the developer and according to people who have lots of experience in tech. So if you don't use this stuff every day, you come at a different kind of perspective. You come with a business problem or a life problem or some opportunity in your life that you want to learn about. And you show up seeing software that wasn't designed for you. So that's part of it. A lot of it is, another thing is that a lot of what we do with IT is abstract and behind layers. So again, there's the user interface, and then there's the IT stuff behind it. You don't know what that is. And the people in my business, who by the way are badly at fault, assume that you do, because we get it. Why doesn't everyone else get it? They must be stupid, right? You're not stupid. You're just not. You are put in position where You're expected to know things that you could never know. And we run into the same situation. Like if I were to step into a different role in a different industry, let's say agriculture, and I was to try and work with the systems that run farms, I'd be lost. I don't know how farming works, right? I know how IT works. So the same kind of problem sets itself wherever you go, wherever you're new.
Well, it's interesting too. I mean, we live in the world of apps these days, and you download an app to your phone, no matter what the operating system, and it never comes with an operation manual. You're typically left to figure it out on your own.
Well, that's actually one of the things I love about consumer technology, meaning the stuff that like regular people use, is they have a much higher standard. Best example of a great user interface is Google Maps. No one has ever read a manual for Google Maps, and yet it's incredibly complex and sophisticated and subtle and filled with, different uses and different ways to do things. And no one ever, do you ever call anybody and say, I don't get this Google Maps thing, I got to take a class? There is no such thing. It's a marvelous, I mentioned bad user interfaces, bad what they call user experience. Google Maps is incredible and it keeps changing. And no one's ever like, did you see the new version? It just does it.
What's one of the worst user interfaces you've ever seen that you believe really turned off users and led to issues with that app or that company?
Early internet access was pretty rough, and that's why there's always this sort of like bell curve. It starts out on the left side. I don't know if this is left or whatever. On one end, you have what are called enthusiasts. By the way, this is like Silicon Valley marketing stuff. Enthusiasts. And these are the people who like a difficult user interface. They like to type. They don't want to click things. They may not have a mouse on their computer, really. Well, they do, but they'd rather not. And they want to be in the guts of the software and the hardware and really get into the code that turns them on. There is a progression that every technology goes, if it survives, to people who are somewhat later adopters, and then what we call the early majority, which is like regular people in businesses. This bell curve rounds up and then it goes down, and then this is where we have the late majority, and then the laggards. Laggards are organizations like gigantic banks. Government bureaucracies run on these things. Healthcare runs on a lot of this stuff, like very late in the game. The systems that work, they just don't touch. Just don't touch that. You break it. We don't know how to fix it anymore. No one has the manual, and the guy who built it retired 10 years ago. Had this problem with a bowling alley once. Bowling alley chain. Long story. The pin setter guy was on vacation, and ransomware happened. But so they all start out bad, right? But for a technology or a product or whole category to move from the early adopters to the middle market requires that you improve your user interface. Because if you don't, people won't buy it. User interfaces tend to be worse in the enterprise and businesses. They tend to be much, much, much better on these things. Right, you'll find the best user interfaces on consumer equipment. An example of really bad one: Adobe. All Adobe products are terrible.
As an Adobe user, I will say that if it's kind of like learning Latin or Hebrew. If you don't use it every day, it's easy to lose because you have to be in it all the time to remember all the little spaces to go to get what you want done.
And as a technology person, that makes sense. I'm a CEO of a small business. There's some aspects of technology that turn me on. I love AI. I love what's happening there. I love automation. What about security technology? I don't care about security tech. I actually don't really care about security unless I get attacked. Then I care about it for just as long as I need to push it from the top of my top 10 problems to near the bottom of my top 10. It never leaves, but I don't want to have to think about security. And unless you're a professional in this game, or you're a risk manager or something like that, you really shouldn't be thinking about security that often. There'll be people who say, well, if people cared about security more, blah, blah, blah. No. If they have to care about security, you, security professional, are not doing your job. This is my opinion. as like a regular person in the world who used to be in security, who saw all the mess that we tolerate, some of which we build almost deliberately, right? There's a lot of shame and guilt that goes around when it comes to security. People get hit and then the blame goes to the victim. What? Unconscionable in my opinion.
Now, security is definitely a complicated path, and it's a necessary evil. Although it can be evil for a user. Especially if you're one of those people who still at this day and age are not using good passwords or are easily hackable or any of those things, security, then it matters. We're here today to talk a little bit about some technology that people should get comfortable with, though. And you've got something that's really on the forefront right now that I think is something that people really should embrace. Tell us about, your views on generative AI and why this is a great thing as opposed to what some people may read in the media.
Some of what you get in the media is true, but a lot of it is true only for about a minute. AI moves fast. The development of these systems and the corrections that are made to how they operate happen like daily. It's incredible the velocity of change in artificial intelligence right now, and it's only going to get faster and weirder. Now here's what I'm trying to sort of evangelize right now. Enjoy it. It's fun. Let me give you an example. I set my 9-year-old daughter down in front of ChatGPT. I said, you can ask questions. You can make pictures. She was in GPT-4o, so I had Dolly, so we could make pictures. She did coloring book stuff. Great. And I walked away. I'm like, I'm going to check her search history later. I came back, and the first question she asked was, what happens if you combine mustard with toothpaste? I'm like, that's what this is for.
That's awesome.
Like okay, fine, automate your job. Great, right? Automate whatever. I'm like, and by the way, like automatically like booking your travel is the dumbest use case there is. Most people like booking their travel. But the business opportunity is enormous, yes. And you're going to need to know, like have hands-on skills with AI platforms like ChatGPT and Claude and blah, 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 in the same way that you better damn well know how to touch type. And I know plenty of people who don't. And like, my wife has also been my business partner. She does this like high-speed hunt peck thing. She'll never go faster than 40 words a minute. Trust me, if you could do 70, you can get a lot more done. But you can talk to these things. AR and VR, those are coming. Virtual reality, augmented reality. That's like the Google glasses. Like, that's where this stuff goes. There's world building happening. Terrific. But seriously, like if you have the slightest bit of curiosity in you, free generative AI platforms, free can start satisfying that curiosity and then prompt more. Because what I get out of this stuff is a thought will come to me out of nowhere. I'm like, I wonder. And I used to go to the library. I spent a lot of time at the kids' library. And, you look and you maybe ask the librarian and they'd say, maybe it's down this or this is the card catalog thing. Go, right? Or here's the microfiche, right? If it was recent, microfilm. And then, we get up to Googling, and Googling gets you only so far. It can't synthesize ideas from multiple places. It can't put the stuff together and craft anything that's new. But, an idea occurs to me last night around 10 o'clock, and I won't get into the details. I'm like, that would be super fun and maybe make some money. So I started asking questions like, okay, structure this thing. What are the parts? Never seen that one before. Tell me more about that. Can you give me a link to a website where I can find that? And what AI allows us to do is not stop at, I don't have the resource. You may not, you're still not, there's still going to be things you don't find. And I'm not talking about like how to manufacture drugs or make explosive. Like that's just media stuff. Forget about that stuff. I'm talking about like some information just doesn't exist at the moment or is unknowable or ungettable, but you can still ask. And no one is going to shame you for your curiosity. No one's going to shame you for not already knowing. One of the biggest problems we have right now is there's so much shame and negativity around. Because people think they're supposed to know everything. Like, of course you don't know everything. You're a human being. You've only been alive for, in my case, 53 years. You know, inshallah, I got another 60 or 70 in front of me. And now, like, I can ask the dumb questions if something is not going to shame me back.
What would you say to people, and we're talking about the general population, who are like, they hear about AI, they think, oh, that's, AI's coming, it's Terminator stuff, it's the stuff of the movies, and in movies, it's more fantasy than reality, and they may be a little hesitant to really get to start with it or embrace it. What would you say to someone?
Turn off the TV. Like ignore the narratives. I mean, particularly in the United States right now, people have not figured out, very few people have figured out that we're still post-pandemic, we're still post-quarantine, we're still recovering from a period when a lot of people were dying. And a lot of people are still sick from that stuff. I live in a place where we saw caskets on trucks a lot. We lost family members. And because people don't deal directly with what caused that trauma, and we're all traumatized from it, every last one of us, we start looking for answers. We start looking for somebody to blame. And there isn't anybody to blame. Political parties, companies, ideologies of one kind or another, religions, it doesn't matter. What matters is like how fully am I living in the world? And there are categories of technology that are available that can enhance that, right? And can create connections and understanding. I can ask about countries I've never been to and learn things about the way people live there. And I can even learn the language that is not in Duolingo. By the way, Duolingo is like AI upside, top to bottom, left to right. Has been for ages, before generative AI platforms that we have today. So the other way to look at it is like you're already dealing with AI all the time. I mean, AI is not new. It starts with Alan Turing in the 50s. The concept shows up then. There is notably a programming language called Common Lisp from the early 1970s. People were doing neural networks and machine learning, things like machine learning. What year is this? 2024? I don't know. Do the arithmetic, right? Long time. What's happened is it's become accessible and easy, and now instead of needing to write code, you have to learn how to give instructions. Things like SMART goals. I use SMART goals when I give an AI something to do, right? Simple, measurable, time-bound, whatever. Look it up. I posted about it last night. And so I'm learning, and others can learn how to be much more clear in their own thinking so that they can make requests that get them what they want. Because the AIs are not going to think for you, really. If you're concerned about like computers taking over the world, couldn't really do much worse than the people who do it right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. So if I've never touched any generative AI in general, I mean, I have personally, but let's say I'm watching today and I've never done it. Mm-hmm. What are a couple of good ways to just kind of dip your toe in the water to start to get that experience to blossom from there?
Google for it. Say, how do I use generative AI? And then follow the instructions. It's really that's it. It's that really easy. That simple. It really is that easy. Like, and I think we tend to we think too little of like ordinary people. Ordinary people are brilliant. There's like genius in every one of us. And what people lack is not intelligence, but patience and the permission to be curious. I mean, I'm curious. I'm professionally curious. Why? Because I get away with it. I didn't fit in school. I was basically expelled with a diploma. And what I found was that the problem that I always had was I wasn't curious enough. I wasn't aggressive enough. I didn't sort of embrace life as with a kind of vigor that I kind of intuited that I should, but people have said, oh, no, like tone it down. Like you might scare people. Well, it's fucking scare people. That's the only way to survive in this world these days in a way that's anything meaningful. Yes, your heart might keep pumping and your blood might keep going, but there are too many people who have basically like given up on life because they're scared and they're angry and they don't know where to point it, right? The answer to that is really simple. Love your own life and the people around you, right? And one of the ways we do that is get really curious. Explore questions together. I mean, one of the things that I'm working on is a course on how to use free or close to free generative AI tools to do cybersecurity work, engineering, analysis, stuff like that. I haven't worked it all out yet, but I'm going to get together with a friend of mine sometime over the next couple of days, and we're going to share a screen, and we're going to ask each other the questions that aren't coming easily, and we're going to like prompt the Gen AI thing. I use a thing called Perplexity. I quite like it. There are a bunch of them. And we're going to let it sort of suggest things. And then we'll take the AI suggestion and put it into a word processor and go, yeah, I like that. I don't like that. I'm going to feed it back in and say, improve it. Right? It becomes a kind of dialogue, not just with a computer, but amongst each other. Like these are all social things. We call it artificial intelligence, but all the data that these things work on comes from humans. It's us in there. Now, there is synthetic data, blah, blah, blah. Who made that? Right? So, play with it.
By embracing this, where as a futurist and looking down the road, how do you see this benefiting, improving the average individual's life?
It's fun. Ain't nothing wrong with fun, brother. We use we could use some more fun around here. Learning has value on its own because, I don't know, by the way, I'm not a futurist. Like, I'm talking about stuff that's happening right now and has been happening for the past 150 years. It's just like running out the pattern. There's a parlor trick that consultants play where we take a trend and we just keep running it out, and we run it out past the point where it actually would be naturally stopped by something. The thing about AI is the natural barrier is what they call scaling, and it's supposed to stop working, and it hasn't stopped working yet. So the rate of progress has gone vertical. It's called the singularity. And the singularity is a point of technological progress where if you are in that moment, things are changing so fast, there's no way to know what's happening. And we're in that right now. It's like anything that I talk about is like 3 months old. But that's okay because everybody else is 3.5 months behind. And then the rest of them are like 6 months behind that. And that's fine. Like, you don't have to be cutting edge to matter. You don't have to be like the best to matter. Just be you. These systems are really good at elevating people's humanity. But you have to stop being scared of it. How do you stop being scared of it? Try it. Ask OpenAI, ChatGPT, whatever, what happens if you combine toothpaste and mustard?
You know what? I think that's our lesson today. I think that is if you're out there and you're watching us and you've always been intimidated by something, by this AI thing, right? That's been thrown around and you hear about it. There's nothing to fear. Give it a shot. Just try. Just try and see what happens, and you may enjoy it. You may find that it.
Yeah, do it with your friends. We do too many things on a solitary basis, right? You know what I love? I hate this. Me looking at phone. You know what I love? Me, phone, my wife, and my kid. That's suddenly more fun because we are looking at now maybe we're on different phones, but like we are interacting in support with the help of this thing. So if you're afraid of it, best antidote to that is like call your sister. She misses you anyway. Whatever, you know what I mean.
You know, I'll wrap it up with a personal example. A buddy of mine really enjoys making memes. So I got myself the subscription to ChatGPT, and we started trading back Gen AI ideas. about him reaching lifetime gold status on Qantas Airways and his love of ice cream and a soft serve ice cream. And I will tell you, some of the crazy things that we've created are hysterical. So I totally agree with you that if you don't have to experiment alone. Experiment with other people. Try it with your friends. Come up with an idea. You throw one word out, let someone else throw another word out, and start making really cool stuff.
Yeah, as like in that Shakespeare thing, I know the difference between a hawk and a handsaw. Ask something. What's the difference between a hawk and a handsaw? Actually, or whatever. But yeah, just have fun with it. This has been great, by the way. I'm out of time. You're out of time, so I'm going to close it. But this has been really totally fun.
I've really appreciated it. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, spending a little time with us. Please subscribe, send comments down below, ring the bell. You know what to do. We've had this around long enough, but certainly support us as we bring you more conversations. Peter, it's been a great conversation. Thanks so much for joining today.